All right, we're gonna start with our first gingerbread shape. Going to spoon my icing into a piping bag and ready to create a border and then fill in my cookie. Snipping a very small end off of my icing bag. I'm going to begin by putting a little bit of icing over here, make sure it's squeezing out. There we go, it's perfect. You'll see that icing slowly sinking down into my bowl. Begin by piping an outline where we want our gingerbread legs and arms to be. And they don't have to be as fat or as round as the cookie. You can stay away from the cookie edge ever so slightly. And I find it's easier to turn the cookie toward me and pipe toward my body instead of trying to pipe large areas of border, working my way all the way around the cookie. All right, once we have our border, we're now ready to fill this cookie up with icing. And it takes a little bit more than you would think. Sometimes it takes enough to fill it, but without overflowing. Does that make any sense at all? So we're going to fill this cookie as much as possible so it's light and fluffy and doesn't have gaps, but at the same time doesn't overflow the cookie. So just begin by creating lines back and forth, kind of like a coloring book. Fill in all of those gaps. And you'll see the color start to loosen and fill in the space, and you can see where there are a few little gaps, so I'm going to add a little bit more icing to that space. Use a toothpick or a scribe tool, something with a nice pointy end, and using that end, swirl that icing until it comes together and fills in all of the gaps and meets up to the border. A few little taps on the back will help it fill in, as well as remove any air bubbles that might be hiding in the icing. We have two different styles of snowman. You've got a straight snowman, and then we have one that's kind of playing in the wind. And we're going to work on our white icing, same consistency. So the flood or fill consistency is loose, but not so loose that it slides out the side of our cookie. Fill our piping bag. Always the messy part. And then start by dividing up the line where you want the top hat to go, and then create the outline for the three areas of our snowman. And he's kind of at a side profile, so it looks a little bit different than our forward facing snowman. Fill in all those gaps, all of those gaps. And you can see that I need a little bit more icing in there. It's too thin, so don't be afraid to add more icing. Then using our scribe tool, swirl that icing to bring it close to the outside edge, fill in any gaps. And you do have to work fairly quickly. You can see this is almost starting to dry. If it crusts on top, it won't smooth out. A couple of taps to get the last of those air bubbles out. Moving on to the next cookie. On our gingerbread. Gingerbread has also had an opportunity to crust, so we can work on details that feel three-dimensional. They should rise above that icing instead of sinking into the icing. I have red, green, black, and white mixed up. I'm going to start next with the red. We're going to start by piping a line across the neckline for the upper portion of his scarf. And you can pile up several lines to create the thickness that you're looking for. And then right here, right down here is where we're going to put the lower portion of that scarf. To give him stripes, we're going to take the green icing and pipe little lines right over the top of that scarf. Go in the opposite direction for the tail that's hanging down. And then using a toothpick, you can drag through that stripe to give the sensation of different patterns. In this case, a herringbone. While we have our red out, might as well put the cute little cheeks in place. spread a little bit wide so we have plenty of room for our smile. Switching over to white, we're ready to put our cuffs onto our gingerbread's pants and his little arms. Scalloped icing, a wavy line, both legs and the arms. If the icing underneath is dry enough, it should stand up and have some three-dimensionality. Switching to our black icing for our little front buttons. We can also make our nice wide smile. Lastly, 2 dots for his eyes. And then we come back with a little bit of white icing to create the eye shines, little reflections. It wouldn't be a character if we didn't add little eyebrows. Now we have to imagine our hat a little bit lower than the top of our forehead for our snowman. So we're going to begin by piping in the brim of the hat right where the white icing meets the cookie. And we'll make that go all the way across that full length of that head. But then for the hat itself, the top hat, we're going to make that a little bit narrower. Now this guy is a straight cookie, where our design that we're working on right now has a little bit of a curve, and his scarf is definitely blowing in the breeze. We're going to begin by piping where the scarf works around the neckline, and then give the sensation that the tails are just flying in the wind. There's one side. Piping the tails going the other direction. And we can make the neckline just a little bit thicker. Definitely going in one direction in the wind. All right, adding our red dots for a little bit of knit fun. And a few white dots too. Go ahead and pipe in the 2 button eyes and nose. I love the little white eye reflections. We're gonna add those as well. When you're looking at these 2 cookies, you'll notice that this one's straight up and down, so his buttons are straight. But this one has a curve, so we're gonna do the same thing. Curve those buttons. 4 little dots to hold our pearls in place. You can use pearls, sprinkles, dragées, whatever you feel like. Cuteness. You can see that sparkle, right? So a snowman wouldn't be a snowman if he didn't have a little bit of white sparkle. Just a little bit to make him sparkle and shine. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, then consider being a part of our Patreon channel. Your support means the world to us and helps keep everything moving. Enjoy full tutorials, exclusive content, and one-on-one instruction from me personally, Natalie. You'll find our channel at patreon.com/artisinCakes. You'll find the link down below. Thanks for joining us.